Hi class, I hope you're doing well today. We have a lot to talk about during our weekly chat, so let's get started. First, if your group was asked to rewrite your research questions, those are due no later than tomorrow. Please go ahead and email those to me. Make sure that your group name and also your section number are included in the subject line of those emails. If you have already sent them to me, please go ahead and check that grade was entered. I believe I am up to date on entering all of those rewrites. So thank you for everyone that has sent those in already. If you have any questions, please let me know. Make sure to get those in quickly. The literature reviews are going to be graded. A lot of them have been graded already, but like I said, there will be a slight delay on that because we needed to focus on those research questions first. So what I'm seeing as I go through the literature reviews is that a lot of the papers are not cohesive, and that means it looks like each section was written by a different group member. And while that is okay, and I understand that each section probably was written by a different group member, we need to make sure that this is one cohesive group paper. So if you haven't done so already, please elect one member of your group to be the chief editor, and that person is responsible for making sure that this paper sounds like one person wrote it. And in some cases, you guys will have to find your group voice. The group voice may sound slightly different than the voice of each individual group member, but that's okay. We're looking for one unified voice, so go ahead and do that. Another issue I saw was that formatting was inconsistent throughout the paper. And while formatting is not my biggest concern, we do need to make sure the formatting is consistent in order for this to be a professional paper. So that means that you need to have the same font size, and you need to make sure that you follow the APA style guide as far as citations and references are concerned. One thing to note, that one of the major things with the reference section in APA style is that they must be in alphabetical order by first author's last name. So a lot of groups didn't do that. Make sure that you alphabetize those references sections. That's something fairly easy to do and that isn't being done. Along with that, the in-text citations need to be the same from paragraph to paragraph. I don't mean that you need to copy and paste the same citation. I mean you need to use the same formatting. If for some reason you are one of the groups that has chosen to include the page number in your citations, that's totally fine. It's just a matter of preference as far as APA goes, but those page numbers should be included throughout all of those citations or take them out entirely. Whatever you do, be consistent. Another thing I've been seeing in the literature review is the use of personal pronouns or conversational language. You aren't addressing the reader as a friend or as someone you're having a conversation with. In all honesty, this is supposed to be a fairly dry professional paper. As you've read through those peer review articles, I'm sure that you've noticed that they're a little bit difficult to get through. And the writer is fairly distanced from the reader. We need to make sure that that is how your papers are going forward. And that's not to say that this style is correct or incorrect. It's just what is typically done in professional writing. And one of the goals of this class is to familiarize you with professional writing. So when you end up in the workforce, you are familiar with it. So let's just go ahead and keep that distance. Let's not use any professional pronouns. Let's be more professional in this video. Let's not use any personal pronouns or refer directly to the reader unless absolutely necessary. Okay, so let's move on to that methods section. Now moving on to the methods and sampling framework. This is due on Halloween, so a week from yesterday. And keep in mind that this methods section is the roadmap for the rest of your paper and your project. And you need to provide enough details on the procedure that you plan to take so that future researchers can replicate your research and provide validity to your results. So in order to do that, you need to make sure that you have a number of areas covered. These areas include, first, you need to describe your sample or the population you plan to survey. This includes a brief description of the demographic information and a justification for this sample selection. If you are one of the groups that has decided you would like to request a sample of BYU Idaho students, that means that you need to provide your reader with some basic information on the demographics of BYU Idaho students. That can be found on the BYU Idaho website. You can even just search in Google BYU Idaho demographics and it should provide you with that information. Another thing, if you are surveying on social media, for example, if you are doing adults ages 21 through 35, then you need to provide me with some you need to provide the reader with some basic demographic information about American adults ages 21 through 35. What's the basic gender breakdown, racial, ethnic breakdown, where are they located, etc., things like that. And the reason for this is this provides context for it ends up providing some context for your results, and it allows you to say whether or not the responses you received mirror the population you had hoped to receive responses from. Okay. So you need to include information about the sample. Then you need to include information about your instrument, including how it was developed and the main topics that will be discussed in that instrument. And by instrument, I mean the survey or questionnaire that you're going to write. I understand at this point that survey is probably not written. The survey isn't due until the 7th of November. So honestly, if I were you, it wouldn't have been written either. But you probably have a good idea of some of the topics that are going to be covered in that survey because you have completed your research questions. Let me rephrase that. You have a good idea of some of the topics that will need to be covered in that survey because you have written your research questions. So while you are discussing how that survey was developed, you need to talk about some of those topics that will be discussed in there. You also need to discuss whether or not the majority of your survey questions will be written by you, or whether those questions will be written or taken from previous surveys. And if you choose to take questions from previous surveys, that's perfectly acceptable. You just need to make sure to include a citation on that survey itself. You will need to talk about data collection in that method section. The data collection includes how you will distribute the survey and what you will include as in your informed consent clause. So if you are planning to distribute your survey, I'm trying not to sneeze. If you plan to distribute your survey via Google Forms, you need to explain that you will be distributing your survey via Google Forms or Qualtrics or whatever method you plan to do that and why you have selected that. Not necessarily why you have selected that particular program, but why you have selected to do an online survey versus another type of survey. And I highly recommend that we select an online survey because it will just be so much easier for your data and for your distribution and then data analysis. One thing to note with that, Qualtrics is available to all BYU Idaho students for free. The easiest way to go in and sign up for an account is to search for Qualtrics on the BYU Idaho main page, and it should direct you to the direction you need to go to sign up for that university account with your university email address. Do not go directly to the Qualtrics site and sign up for an account because it will give you a limited account and it will not give you access to all of the tools or let you distribute the survey to as many people. If you go through the BYU Idaho website, the university has paid for a license that is available to all students, and it is the full form of Qualtrics, which if you choose to use Qualtrics, you really want to use the full form. Google Forms is also a great option to use. I highly recommend staying away from things like SurveyMonkey or any of those other free survey services, just because their data analysis tools located within the program are not quite as robust as those within Qualtrics or Google Forms. What I mean by that is Google Forms and Qualtrics will generate some charts and some basic distributions for you as your results start to come in, and that will kind of give you an idea of where things are going and help you develop some of that, help kind of guide some of the analysis as you go forward. So those are just good tools to use. It won't do all of your data analysis for you, but it'll kind of help guide you. If you choose to go another route, that's totally fine. Just know you might have a little more work. I highly recommend you do not use a pen and paper survey or an intercept survey. Do not go talk to people in person. I mean, we can talk about it if you feel like it's really important, but it is going to be kind of a nightmare for you. It is going to take a long time to get enough survey responses. And then on top of taking the time for you to go out and actually collect those responses and get people to fill out that survey, then you have to enter all the data. And That is such a pain. It's such a pain. Don't do that to yourself. It's almost Thanksgiving and Christmas, and don't do that. Use an online survey. But if you're set on that intercept survey, let's chat and see what we can do to make that a little easier. Okay, and then the last part that will need to be included in the methods section is a little bit on your data analysis. You don't need to go into depth about how you plan to analyze your data. Just talk a little bit about some of the connections that you plan to make or any tests that you plan to run. At this point, you should have an idea of kind of which variables you need to look at in conjunction with one another. And we can include that. Remember this, I don't want to call it a first draft because that's not what it is, but this is your initial plan for the procedure that will take place as you collect your data, keeping in mind that sometimes things go a little bit awry and things might be a little bit different than you initially plan, and you will need to make changes and updates to this method section before it is included in the final draft of the paper. But for now, that's what you need to include. It needs to be fairly specific. People need to be able to follow it. And all of this information will be included in the class announcements. I realized it was kind of a lot. Okay, last thing I want to talk about, and I want to talk a little bit more candidly about this, is group participation. I've been receiving a lot of comments. I don't want to call them complaints, but comments from group members that we have members of the groups that are not responsive to emails, text messages, not coming to group meetings, and just not participating in the project. Let me lay this out as plainly as possible. No participation equals no points. You choose not to participate or communicate with the group, you are also making the conscious choice to receive no points on the assignment. So please don't make that choice. It's not a great one, but you have the free will to make that choice. If for some reason you find yourself in a situation where you are unable to make a group meeting or have been off the grid for a couple of days, please let me and your group members know what's going on. I know that things happen. I know that disasters happen, that kids get sick, that car accidents happen, you get sick, things like that. Let us know what's happening and we can work with that. We cannot work if you just fall off the grid and stop participating. That does not work. So come back to us. Come back to us. Let's chat, get in touch with your group members. If you're part of a group and you haven't heard from them in a while, be proactive. Reach out to your group members. No one is mad if you reach out to them. So please go ahead and do that. The mid-course peer evaluations are going to be due on Saturday, November 3rd, which is not this coming Saturday, but the following, and you will have the opportunity to rate your group members. Keep in mind that the grade that will be given to you is based on an average of the scores given to you by your group members, not based on my understanding of your group participation. So, if I feel like everything is going all lovely, but your group members say that you've fallen off the face of the earth and that you have done nothing, your grade will reflect that. That's not to say that group members will gang up on you, but we're going with their assessment of your participation. So if for some reason your participation needs to step it up a little bit, let's do it in the next few weeks. Make sure that you are responding to those emails and text messages or however your group has decided to communicate with one another. You can do it. I know you can. And if so far you haven't been as great as you'd hope, this is a great time. It's a great time to turn over a new leaf. So let me know how those groups are doing. If you have any questions about the class or how things are going or the upcoming assignments, please let me know. We are going to be instituting a new thing that goes forward with the methods section, and I should have put this at the beginning of this extremely long video. I am happy to read over all of your group assignments as they are turned in. So what I mean by that is I'm happy to provide early feedback on your assignments. You receive that early feedback, make the changes, and then submit it for real. In all cases, you will have to make that submission by the Sunday before the due date. So the methods section is due on Halloween, which is next Wednesday. If you would like early feedback on your methods section, you need to submit it to me by the 28th. Which is Sunday. And I'll make sure and put that in this week's announcements as well. But that same thing will apply to all of the major assignments going forward, except not the IRB application, because that is something that doesn't really require feedback, but it will apply to your survey, the results section, and the final paper as a whole. So I'll make sure and include that every week with a reminder of when that is due. I hope you all have a great week. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for suffering through to the end.